Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Just Sayin here in 2025. I am Shay.
And I'm Jairus.
And we are very happy and excited to be back for another week. We got a lot to talk about. No Marvel this week. No Marvel. No superhero anything. I know. I'm sorry. But as of this recording, last night was the College Football National Championship game. So college football is over. We had the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, which definitely showed up and showed out.
Wild.
We have some pretty big Major League Baseball news to get to. And once again, we might as well just turn into a Dodgers podcast because we're just going to keep talking about the Dodgers here. But have some good conversation, especially about the way they're spending their money. Plus some other sports news, a little NASCAR update because their season's about to start soon, and an update on the NHL and the National Basketball Association. So without further ado, though, we're going to start off with the biggest story of the week. Last night, College Football National Championship. Ohio State Buckeyes versus the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in Atlanta, Georgia.
Now, I think we can all agree that these two teams, I don't think they were necessarily expected to be in this position.
Ohio State was, yes. They're the most expensive college team in all of football.
Yeah, but getting past Oregon was definitely a tall order. But as we all know, they kind of blew them out of the water.
Yeah.
But Ohio State going in here hasn't won a national championship since 2015. And, of course, Notre Dame hasn't won one since 1988, which is a long time for the Fighting Irish. So, Shay, how did this game go?
Not good as far as Irish fans go, myself included. Ohio State, unfortunately, won 34-23. College football, two fan bases I can't stand: Ohio State and Florida State. And God damn it, Ohio State won. So now we're gonna have to hear about it all year long. But
you still lost to Michigan.
They did still lose to Michigan. But Ryan Day that will end up keeping his job because they won the Natty. But yeah, 34-23. It was a lot closer than I thought it was going to end. I got a halftime update. I was working last night, so of course I couldn't watch the game.
Well, I couldn't watch the game either because we don't have
traditional cable. That's right. At the halftime, though, Notre Dame was down 21-7. Pretty big hole to climb out of going into the second half. But they almost came back. However, Ohio State just wouldn't let them through. Quinshon Judkins, had 3 touchdowns. Quarterback for the Buckeyes, Will Howard, went 17 for 21 and as completions, 231 yards and 2 touchdowns. Riley Leonard, the QB for the Irish, some notable for him. He also had a good game, but notable that first drive that took a long time. He ran the ball 9 times, scored the first touchdown of the game. Irish went up 7-0, and then he ran to the bench and threw up because he was so exhausted. But team player right there.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of the first half because I was at the gym and it was on the TV there.
Getting swole.
The first drive, Notre Dame looked really good. They had great pace, 18 plays and almost 10 minutes for the first drive. So I thought, okay, Notre Dame's here. But the first drive that Ohio State had, you could just tell that the defense was pretty outmatched.
Yeah.
Lots of broken tackles, lots of blown coverage. Really, on 2 crucial plays where the Buckeyes scored touchdowns, there was just huge blown coverage by the Notre Dame defense. But, on the Ohio State side, those were some really great play designs that really fooled the team.
Yeah, got to give credit where credit's due, and Ohio State won, and they spent a lot of NIL money to get the players that they wanted, and it worked out. So congrats, unfortunately, to the Buckeyes and their fans. Finally got their another championship, their eighth national championship.
which is a lot.
Great, good for you. So we'll have to hear about it all year. However, that did conclude the first ever 12-team college football playoff. The College Football Playoff Committee did come out before the championship and say that, of course, it was going to be back next year, the 12-team playoff, but there would be some minor tweaks. So we'll see what those minor tweaks might be in the coming months. But I don't know, Jairus, what do you think? Was the first ever 12-team playoff a success, a resounding success, just or a failure?
Now, I got to say, during the first round of the playoffs, it didn't look great. There wasn't a lot of tension in those games, and rightfully so. I mean, there were some teams that weren't expected to even be in the playoffs, but a lot of blowouts, a lot of lopsided games, and the teams that moved on, you kind of expected for them to move on. But the second round, every single team that got the byes got upset.
Correct.
So then I was like, oh, yeah. Like this is awesome.
Yeah.
And there were two teams, this year in the national championship that both were not undefeated.
Correct.
Which was really nice to see. So I honestly think the 12-team playoff format was a resounding success, and the numbers show it too. Every round, the semifinals, from the quarterfinals to the semifinals to the national championship, the views kept increasing on TV. And I think for the national championship, there were almost 20 million people watching that game.
Yeah, college football comes in second as far as viewership goes, only to the NFL for sports. So if it were a professional sport, it would be second place. Football is just that popular in our country. I think the 12-team playoff is also a success. I'd say different reasons, though. I thought the first round, like minus the games being like blowouts, were fantastic because they were home playoff games. And just the atmosphere at each stadium was, oh my God, just that's what you live and breathe for right there. So I think it was a great success for that. I wish there were more playoff games, but the bowl games are, traditionally a core part of college football, so they'll never go away, which they shouldn't. But yeah, I think it's a great success. There's probably going to be some tweaks as far as seeding goes and how the playoff committee picks, who moves on and stuff, which is probably warranted, probably a good idea. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised within the next few years if they increase the size to 14 or even 16 teams. You never know, but I think it was another successful college football season. Congrats to the Buckeyes. Fighting Irish had a great year, honestly. Great year. And Marcus Freeman, I think, deserves his Coach of the Year award, which he did get for all of college football. So congrats to them. And college football's over. There's only one football league left.
That's right. So before we move on to that, thank you guys for being with us during our college football coverage. And, over the next month, we'll be doing some, discussions on draft picks and, players that are entering the draft and, updating you guys on who's like entering the transfer portal and all that. So, stay tuned for that. And thanks for being with us throughout the CF season.
And hopefully for you, your Gators get better.
We had our moments, but yes.
Moving on to the NFL. It was divisional round weekend. 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday, and it was a great weekend of playoff football.
Couple games, very predictable, kind of went how you expected, but there were a couple games that was like, what the actual fuck just happened?
Exactly.
And we're going to break it all down.
Exactly. Starting with the Chiefs and Texans at Arrowhead in Kansas City. Freezing cold. Hey, as of this recording, here in Florida, North Florida, we have fucking snow. That's how cold it is right now. We have snow in Florida.
You don't see that very often
No. So it was very
in the
cold.
Sunshine State.
Exactly. Very cold in Arrowhead. The Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce did it again. Mahomes had a crazy highlight play where he was getting tackled to the ground and somehow got the ball into Travis Kelce's hands for the touchdown.
He couldn't just let Burrow have that one, could he? He had to go and do it himself.
Yeah, exactly. So the Chiefs did beat CJ Stroud and the Texans 23-14. And I mean, what else is there to say? Really, we said it last year. When it's playoff time, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. They just win. They find a way to win, as they have all year this year, especially. So I'm not surprised.
Now, I have a couple of points that I want to make first before we move on to the next game. Everybody's saying, well, the NFL's rigged. Travis Kelce had a really bad season, and then for whatever reason, he finally showed up for this game. Yeah, it's the playoffs.
Yeah.
There are players that know how to elevate their play in the playoffs, and those are the players you want on your team, and you hate them when they're not.
Yep, exactly.
2, oh, well, there was, a couple questionable calls and, the refs are on Kansas City side. And I'm a Bengals fan. I'm defending the Chiefs right now, okay? I just can't buy into the fact that the NFL is rigged.
Yeah.
Are there questionable calls during games? Absolutely.
Of course.
These are human beings. They're not computers. They might see something that they don't necessarily like, that maybe fans don't agree that should be called or is not egregious enough, but it happens. And I want to say, especially during the first half, Houston had multiple opportunities to capitalize and get in the end zone, and they couldn't. So you can't pin the game on 2 bad calls or a bad call and say, oh, well, obviously this game was rigged and manipulated by the refs. I just think that's ridiculous. But you can let us know what you think in the comments section down below, obviously. And number 3, it's the Chiefs. So What did we expect? They move on to their 7th straight AFC championship game. 7th straight, which is insane.
Only 2 behind the record that the Patriots set with 9 straight. Moving on to Saturday night. And probably the shock of the weekend, not probably, by far the shock of the weekend, the Washington Commanders, unfortunately, shocked the number 1 seeded Detroit Lions in Detroit, with Barry Sanders in the house, Eminem in the house, in Detroit, 45-31. Holy cow.
What just happened, right? We all knew that both these offenses, like we said last week, they're very aggressive. They go for it consistently on 3rd, 4th down. They make trick plays, all that. So we figured, it's probably going to be an offensive shootout. I did not expect this much of points scored. There were 42 points scored between the 2 teams in just the first half.
Yep.
Which was crazy.
Exactly. Jaden Daniels, he's for real. Commanders fans, you have found your franchise quarterback. Absolutely.
Don't RG3 him, please.
Yeah, please. So congrats to him. He has a chance. Ladies and gentlemen. If he beats the Eagles next Sunday, to be the first ever starting rookie quarterback to start in a Super Bowl. He has a chance.
That's right.
We'll get to that game in a moment. However, there were 2 points, in my opinion, of contention for the Lions and why they lost Saturday night. 1, the injuries on defense. 11 players on the injured reserve for the Lions only on defense coming into this game, finally showed up. That amount of injuries finally showed up. They gave up almost 481 yards of total offense. And also, Jared Goff did not look good. They got destroyed in the turnover margin. Goff had 3 interceptions.
Jameson Williams had an interception because
On a
they
trick
did a
play.
trick play.
And Goff had a fumble lost as well. That it finally showed up. Now, given the even with the turnover margins, the Lions were still landing haymakers just like the Commanders were and fighting back. So they did have a chance, but even the Commanders defense obviously gave up a lot of yardage and points too, but the Lions defense just could not stop. Couldn't stop at all the Commanders and Jaden Daniels. It was just not happening. And I even with all those turnovers, which yes, would be the Lions might have won with they didn't turn the ball over so much, but I think the injuries on defense finally caught up to them, and what was supposed to be their season finally caught up to them and ultimately caused them to lose that game.
Now, I just want to say, Lions fans, I know it's disappointing, I know. But usually, historically, in every sport, teams have to go through painful losses in the playoffs before they win the big one. I want you also to take that with a grain of salt because I know the Lions have felt pain through most of their existence in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no doubt, especially with Dan Campbell at the helm, that you guys will be back and win a Super Bowl in the next 3 to 5 years.
We'll see.
We'll see, though.
We'll see.
But yeah, I agree with what you said. The turnovers, I think, definitely killed them. The defense, for sure, the injuries reared their ugly head. But having 5 turnovers in a game is not going to win you the game.
Yep. Yeah, Goff finally looked not good.
He looked like the old Jared Goff before he came to Detroit.
Yeah. Moving on to Sunday, the first game Sunday afternoon. The Eagles, thank God, beat the Rams 28-22 in a snowy playoff classic up in Philadelphia. And man, was it beautiful to see the transition from that first half rain, ugly rain, wet snow to a nice snowy field and playing in the snow in the second half. Oh, football's beautiful. I love it. It was a good game. Came down right to the wire.
They couldn't make it easy.
Nope.
The Eagles could not make it easy.
Could not make it easy. But our defense played big and showed up big at the end of the game to seal the deal. Jalen Hurts did hurt his knee because he got bent backwards. So I'm hoping he'll be okay for the championship game, but that's, yet to be determined. However, Saquon Barkley.
Saquon is him. He is him. And just, oh, wow, it's such a treat watching him.
He torched the Rams for the second time this year because we played them in, I think it was like week 13. Torched the Rams, had 205 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on the game, and he has the most touchdowns of 60-plus yards in a season all-time with 6. 4 of those touchdowns this year, of the 6, came against the Los Angeles Rams.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I will say the last 4 minutes of that game, the Eagles looked like they were cruising. But then the Rams get a quick 7 points. I think Jake Elliott had missed a couple extra points.
Yeah.
So they were only down by 6. So if they had great clock management, they could have walked away with the win by 1 point.
But Jalen Carter said, nope, I'm going to sack the fuck out of you, Matt Stafford, and sealed the game. The Rams, I
was pretty scared.
Yeah.
So not going to lie.
Yeah, so was I.
Oh.
The Rams no huddle offense definitely hurt the Eagles defense down the stretch. Eagles defense were just too tired to keep up, especially playing in the snow. But the snow was definitely a big help for us because there were drop balls by both teams, but more importantly, the Rams. And the receivers couldn't run their routes with good cuts like they wanted to because they would slip and fall. So the snow was definitely, I think, to our advantage. So we'd thankfully move on. Whew, I just hope Jalen's okay. But we got Saquon, and nobody's stopping Saquon.
Now, I do want to ask you a question. I know it was a snow game, so like you said, the receivers obviously couldn't, play at their full potential.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think next week, if also pending if Jalen is ready to go, could you see like the receiving department having a really big game? Because, in the wild card game, AJ Brown was kind of cold.
Well,
and with Devontae Smith, do you
I
think
want
they're due
them
for big games?
I want them to have a big game. But clearly we don't need that to win. We have by far the best O-line in all of football, the biggest O-line in all of football, the most physical O-line in all of football. And oh yeah, we have the best running back in the entire football league right behind them. So
you're not even worried?
I'm not worried. If the passing game again doesn't show up, I'm not worried, no. I want them to show up. I would love for AJ Brown and Devontae Smith to really get involved and Jalen to have a great game. But like Jalen had a 40-plus yard run for a touchdown too.
No,
in the first half.
He had a good game for sure.
So I want them, yes, to open up the passing game because then that makes the running game even better. But we've proven we can still win on the ground. But like I think we would have swept the Commanders in the regular season if Jalen didn't get his concussion on the first drive of the game.
Yeah.
But
also, with that being said, right now, like if the Eagles were to win the Super Bowl and Saquon keeps going where he's at, could he win the Super Bowl MVP?
Yeah, depends on how he played in the game. Yeah, absolutely. He would be a huge part of it. Last but not least, and what was billed as the game of the year, I don't think it quite lived up to that hype in my personal opinion, but it was still a fantastic game. The Buffalo Bills did hold on to beat Baltimore in chilling, freezing cold Buffalo, New York, 27-25. Costly turnovers in the first half by Lamar and 2 key drops by tight end Mark Andrews in the second half,
including the game-tying 2-point conversion.
Correct. Ended the Ravens' season. And that sets up the conference championship with the Eagles and Commanders at 3 p.m. on Sunday. And once again, the Bills and Chiefs at 6:30 on Sunday.
Absolute cinema.
It's
going to be.
As an Eagles fan, I would have preferred to play the Lions, honestly. So I'm pretty nervous going up against the Commanders, but I still have faith that we can do it. And this Bills Chiefs game this is what you live for. This is Brady and Manning in the playoffs right here. This is the next evolution of Brady and Manning. Patrick and Josh.
Yeah, I can't wait. And that Ravens Bills game, I thought the Ravens again played great, but just the mistakes, man, the costly mistakes at the crucial points, kind of did them in. And I know all of Ravens fans are wanting Mark Andrews to be run out of town. It was a big mistake, but you can't blame one guy for the game.
No, even Coach Harbaugh came out and said we wouldn't be here without Mark Andrews defending his player. So I think it's uncalled for.
Yeah, and even when Lamar was interviewed about it, he said, we're a team. He didn't even name.
Yep, exactly.
So, but I thought it was also really cool. As soon as the game ended, Allen runs up to Lamar and says, great game, and you just respect.
Yes. Yeah. And Lamar not just runs up to Lamar, runs up to a smiling and looks like happy to see Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. So that was really cool to see. Definitely respect both ways from both guys. So that's great. But now it's Allen and Mahomes.
Yeah, for the Ravens, it's another very disappointing early playoff exit, and there's definitely some questions that need to be answered. They were without Zay Flowers, so that did play a factor. But yeah, just MVP potential, 1 and 2 in the MVP clash, and I think it was everything you could ask for.
Yeah, exactly. But that's it for the divisional round. The conference championship is next, and then only 2 weeks after that, Super Bowl 59.
That's it. Football's gonna be over.
Oh, I'm gonna start crying.
Yeah,
Just
but it's
that
okay
time.
because with the podcast, we have the entire off season to discuss, and
That's right.
with the YouTube channel, we got videos coming out, so
That's right.
we're gonna enjoy the off season, and when September rolls around again or August, we'll be ready for the next season.
Yeah, exactly.
So with Washington winning going to their first NFC championship since 1991,
Yep.
the Cowboys now hold the longest drought for an NFC team to not go to the championship.
Yeah, you realize Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels were conceived and then born, grew up,
became athletes.
went to college, played in the pros, and got to an NFC championship game all before the Cowboys' last day.
Oh, great. And I even said to you the other day, like, ooh, that makes the Giants the laughing stock now of the NFC East, but they've won 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah, exactly.
Since 1995. So, ooh, Cowboys fans, we them boys, right? This is our year, right? Yeah. But aside from, the Cowboys' many failures, I think the playoffs have really shown one thing, and it usually happens every single year. Come playoff time, the regular season does not matter. Records you set in the regular season, when it's, the best of the best playoff teams against each other, I think personally everybody has a clean slate. And they're just a different animal.
Yeah, I think I'd agree for the most part. Tom Brady, during the broadcast of the Eagles game, though, had an interesting take because you kind of asked a similar question from Kevin Burkhardt, or his statement, I should say, sorry. And Tom Brady said, in his opinion, yeah, the regular season doesn't matter. It is a different beast, the playoffs, but that doesn't happen when the playoffs start. That happens all the way back in May in training camp. Like when you realize you have a team right then and there and you make the decision, we're going to go all out, try our absolute hardest every single practice, every single day. And then you get to the playoffs. So coming from him, the greatest of all time, I kind of, that maybe opened my mind up a little bit more to that. And like, okay, maybe it kind of does go both ways. Like, yeah, the playoffs are a different beast, but or you have at least a great idea back in training camp of like, okay, this team could go somewhere. So yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are also a great team where they didn't look good in the regular season at all, but they finished with the best record in the NFL. And here we are in the playoffs after their bye week and picking up what they've done for the last 7 years in the playoffs. So it goes every which way it can go.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. I don't want to say like the regular season doesn't matter at all. Like obviously it does, but like you have like say the Lions Commanders, you have a number 2 seed versus the number 7 seed or the number 1 seed. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Don't do that to the Vikings.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, we'll see you in 2 weeks. He's talking about Cancun.
Yeah, that's right.
Love that meme. But yeah, I mean, obviously the Lions going into that game, like when you take it at face value, yeah, the Lions should have probably beaten the Commanders.
Yep.
So that's the only reason I say that is because like any team can win on every given night.
That's right.
And for the NFL, I do think the regular season matters definitely more than say like in a sport like baseball or like NHL, NBA, because there's just so many more games.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you have those downbeats, like it's not a huge deal. But for like the NFL, you go on like a 3 or 4 game losing streak. Well, there's only 17 games in the season, so
Or you start out really slow.
like a couple teams that we've talked about. Thanks for that. But yeah, I mean, the regular season definitely matters for sure. And I'm just saying, like in the playoffs, and really any game in the regular season too, any team can win on any given day,
any given Sunday. That's the saying for the NFL.
Yeah, and to close out with the Lions upset, definitely disappointing. I wouldn't say I was like shocked like beyond imagination because of all the injuries.
Yeah.
But this is the first time since they expanded the playoffs, obviously, that a number 7 seed has upset the number 1 seed in the playoffs. And even before then, only 6 teams, I think, that were the 6th seed upset the top seed in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's definitely a big disappointment for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a disappointment, but if I were a Lions fan, I'd be disappointed, but I'd kind of like, I don't want to say wash away the season,
like write it off,
but you almost have to, because you just had an unprecedented amount of injuries on one side of the ball. It's not like it was spread out throughout the team.
Right.
Like it was one side of the ball, the defense and give Aaron Glenn a shit ton of credit, because with all the injuries he had, he still made his defense show up and play great for the majority of the year. So
can't say the same for the Bengals.
yeah, I don't want to say like write it off, but you kind of have to. Next year, I think the Lions have the majority of their players coming back, so they should still be, and plus obviously still Dan Campbell. They should be picking up right where they left off, but Goff has to play better in the playoffs. That's for sure. His first, the first game out of the bye, he didn't play. It's not like he played terrible, but he didn't play great either. So he needs to be better. And the defense just needs to be healthy.
Yeah, definitely. But that concludes the first half of this episode. And we're looking on to next week for those conference championships, especially the Bills and Chiefs. But the Eagles and Commanders going to be no slouch either, because they're division rivals.
Third time in one season that they're meeting up. So it'll be the tiebreaker.
Yep. So with that, we're going to go ahead and take our break here. So thank you guys so much for listening up to this point as always. And don't forget to like the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube for day early access. Not a big deal. But if you're listening to this on Spotify, you can talk to the people that listen on YouTube and see what happened in the past. But yeah, we'll be back, and we will see y'all very soon.
Welcome back from the break. Woo! We're ready to go. Second half kickoff. I'm sorry. That was a little aggressive. Sorry, everybody.
Ear rape warning.
Sorry, everybody. That was a little aggressive. I was just excited. Got my, pee break in and everything, so I'm ready to go.
You also ate a Kit Kat, right?
What?
Because it was break time.
Anyway, we're going to move on, and we're just going to touch up on NASCAR here for a second, because believe it or not, the new season is starting up just next month. Followed by sports news that we want to talk about and think is, worthy of some note. And then baseball, as we said earlier, it's the Dodgers show. And then
we just don't like every other MLB team.
Yeah, that's right.
Not even our.
and then the NBA and the NHL. So, without further ado, the Daytona 500, the greatest race of the year, my personal favorite race, comes back on February 16th here in Daytona, Florida. One day I will go, but it is also very expensive, so I don't know when.
Now, Shay, I just want to say three things. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engines.
Holy shit. I'm fired up. But yes, it is back. February 16th, NASCAR is starting off their new season. It's notable off-season news that we think is at least notable. There hasn't been much.
Not much.
Not much. But Martin Truex Jr., who did retire last year, has partnered with Tricon Garage, and he will be attempting to qualify for the Daytona 500. So very cool for him. And Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s Xfinity Racing Team, Junior Motorsports, will put a cup car in the Great American Race.
Oh, yeah.
So we will do like we did last year, driver picks for the Daytona 500, but also who we think is going to get into the playoffs and win it all.
That's right. Will Ryan Blaney reclaim the throne? Or will everyone's favorite driver, Joey Logano, go back to back?
Or will Denny Hamlin
Again.
finally win one? We'll see. Anyway, moving on to just some, just some sports news, because we're a news show. Aside from the Dodgers show, we're a news show. The Minnesota Vikings and head coach Kevin O'Connell. Breaking news as of just a few minutes ago, as of this recording, reached a multi-year extension, which I don't think anyone's really that surprised.
No, for sure. So the head coaching position is not changing, but the starting quarterback position might be in question because Sam Darnold is heading to McDonald's on
What?
a $30 an hour contract.
That QB situation though will be interesting. Will Sam Darnold go somewhere and get a good deal, a big contract, maybe like a Baker Mayfield kind of contract or Daniel Jones? I think he will. Or will he stay with the Vikings and do another year there? We'll see. The Lions, this did not take long at all. The Lions offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, which Dan Campbell came out and said he expects to lose both coordinators. Ben Johnson, he's going up north. He's going
not just up north,
to a
but
rival.
he's going to a division rival. He finalized a contract to become the new head coach of Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears.
That's right. So when these two teams meet up,
There going to be some bad blood.
yeah, Lions fans probably aren't going to be too happy to see him going to. But hey, he's trying to, do
Hey,
better for himself and
good
for
for
his
him.
family. Absolutely.
Good for him. Head coaching position. You got, an organization that has struggled recently. And if he's the guy,
Whoa. Not recently. For a long time.
well, you didn't have to rub it in here, okay? But if he's part of the solution to turn it around, then great. And he's got a promising young quarterback and Caleb Williams,
Yep.
some good pieces there. So I'm
Sure.
very interested to see how he performs for the Chicago Bears in the coming seasons.
Yeah.
But that leaves 5 head coaching
5.
positions still vacant.
$5 foot long. Oh, just kidding. Not sponsored.
Everyone's favorite contender that never was, the Jets, followed
Yep.
by the disaster of Florida, the Jaguars, the New Orleans Saints, who are hosting the Super Bowl but won't be in it,
Yep.
the Cowboys, who are the Cowboys, and the Raiders.
Yeah.
Still need a head coach.
That's right. Well, all those franchises right now are kind of disasters, including the Cowboys. But we'll see what happens, and we'll be sure to keep you posted on who is the next head coach of any of these 5 teams. But Jarris, your old DC did find a new home.
That's right. Lou Anarumo was hired as the new Colts defensive coordinator. And I saw a lot of talk, this was a while ago, but when he was fired, obviously a lot of people were calling for his head all season because of the defense.
Mm-hmm.
But there were some that said, it's not really Anarumo's fault because the front office, the GM, let go a lot of key pieces of our defense ever since we went to the Super Bowl in 2021. I can't disagree.
I mean, it's only going to get worse, though.
That's right. We'll definitely have a discussion on that another time because there's a lot to unpack with the Cincinnati Bengals. But yeah, I mean, I hope Anarumo does well in Indianapolis. And we've hired 2 offensive line coaches, I think, or defensive line coaches. I haven't seen a new DC as of yet. So that position's still vacant. For the Jags, they've done their interviews, including Robert Saleh. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Saleh.
And the Vikings defensive coordinator,
Brian Flores.
Yeah. So we'll see if they land any of those coaches or, they go with someone else, maybe a little bit off the board. But I don't think it can get worse for the Jaguars after this year. Maybe it can. They're the Jaguars. So
I mean, they could lose some more games.
Yeah.
But before we get into the Dodgers, because this is the Dodgers podcast, to finish off some sports news with baseball, All-Star outfielder Anthony Santander did sign. Bless you, Howie.
Bless you, Howie.
Wow, sorry. Did sign with the Blue Jays. Blue Jays finally making some moves for 5 years, worth $92.5 million, with a club option for the 6th year and an opt-out option for the 3rd year. So congrats to him. And, suck it, Blue Jays. You're just going to keep sucking, but it's okay because the Red Sox are right there with you.
Same with the Rays. Yeah, and it was like a week ago that Vladimir agreed on a new 1-year deal after it went to arbitration.
Yeah.
Could he walk after it's done? Because then he'll finally be a UFA. We'll see. But I don't think the Blue Jays haven't not tried to land.
They've been trying.
Big free agents.
Haven't won.
They just haven't been the destination that people wanted to go to.
Nope.
So yeah, sorry, Jake. But we'll see if the Blue Jays can make any more moves during the offseason to hopefully get back in the playoffs.
That's right. And now moving on to your favorite portion of the show, of the Dodgers podcast. The Dodgers, the Los Angeles, which real quick. And this goes to the Rams too. The Rams played their hearts out against the Eagles. I loved all the LAFD shirts that the Rams coaching staff and players were wearing in support of all the firefighters and first responders out there in Southern California. So thank you again. Thank you for everything that you guys have done to help everybody out there. And our hearts and thoughts go out to all the victims and everyone affected by the fires in Southern California and around the Los Angeles area. But the Dodgers signed phenom pitcher Roki Sasaki out of Japan, now having the Big Three from the World Baseball Classic team that won it all.
Yeah. They signed Blake Snell. They signed Yoshinobu Yamamoto last season. I thought that was it. Okay, the Dodgers are set. Nope. They went out and got the best promising rookie pitcher out of Japan. Mm-hmm. And wait,
there's more.
And they also signed all-star closer Tanner Scott and relief pitcher Kirby Yates to identical 4-year, $72 million deals.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's their starting rotation projected is Shohei Ohtani, which of course. Yamamoto. Glasnow, who is a free agent but expected to stay with the team. Snell. And Sasaki. We still don't know for sure, Clayton Kershaw news, if he's coming back or if he's going to retire, but potentially Kershaw still waiting in the wings. Unreal starting lineup. Or rotation, sorry.
I mean, out of all these three, any team would be lucky to have two.
One! Even one!
Like, they have five.
They could all be aces. Like, that's how... it's just crazy. So
not only with the starters, but they have one of the best closers on the free agent market, and they get
another pitcher.
Good relief pitcher.
I know.
I mean, this might just be getting out of hand if it hasn't already.
Correct. So this leads to 3 questions here. Okay. Number 1, how successful? And we've talked about this before, but now so much they just keep adding names. How successful do the Dodgers have to be for all this spending to be considered worth it? They already won 1 World Series. They did. Now what? How many more?
So they won the 2024 World Series. So let's just say the next 10 years. So that's 2034. They've already won 1. I think, and this spending, this is like record setting.
Yeah.
Like no team has went out ever and spent this amount of money.
Ever.
And it just keeps going. Personally, for me, at the very least, they need to win 4. 4 out of the next 10 World Series. And they already won 1, so they only need 3 more.
Mm-hmm.
At least, though, I think even then, people would be like, okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And this is all opinion, it's not any exact science, but I think if they won 6 or 7, then everybody would be like, okay, this was a huge success and the money was worth it. But for me, at the very least, they need to win 4.
I mean, I think they could win 10 straight, but I also agree. I think the least acceptable number would be 4 championships. It's just unfathomable what they're doing, which leads to the second question here. There's a lot of people upset with the Dodgers and how they're spending all this money to buy up all this talent and go buy a championship, in quotes. There's a lot of people upset, but there's a counter to this. The counter is, well, you can be upset, but they have an ownership group that is willing to spend this money to make their team as best as possible. And with no salary cap, which will be the third question, they're doing what they can to go win championships for them and for the fans. What about these other ownership groups that are doing nothing, that are okay with losing, that are okay with being, just mediocre, like the Pittsburgh Pirates ownership group, recently the Red Sox ownership group, you could say the Penguins ownership group, you could say the Raiders, like all across sports. They're not spending money and they're not winning anything. You look at the Dodgers, their owners are doing something.
Yeah, I also want to say, just because you go out and spend the most money does not mean success.
Correct.
It has to show up on the field product.
Absolutely.
But yeah, with that being said, no salary cap definitely plays a huge part. You can go and spend however much you want. So every team, in theory, has the ability to go out and do this.
Yep, exactly.
In theory. For small market teams, say like the Rays,
yep,
like the Royals, it does make it a lot more difficult, because if you're not making a bunch of profit from, ticket sales and all that, it makes it a lot more difficult to go out and land a big free agent and spend a ton of money. But like I said, in theory, every team can do it.
Correct. And the Dodgers last year proved not only are they spending the money to go win championships, but that money is also translating out onto the field and into the bats to win said championships.
That's right. And they didn't even sign like the biggest contract. That went to the Mets,
Correct.
who signed Juan Soto. So could the Mets, look at this and be like, you know what? Maybe we'll go out and get more free agents, land more big free agents.
Right, yeah. But so I think I agree with the counter to that, saying, yeah, they're spending a lot of money and stuff, but at least their owners are doing something. Like their owners are trying to go and win. When you have other organizations that are just content with, as long as I'm making money, I don't care, kind of thing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That happens in every sport. You have some owners that have the money, that they have the ability to go out and spend, but they're just okay with, well, I made profit, so, people still come to the game, so why should I put out the best on-field product possible? I'm making money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So with that leads to another question, though. If, and this is also if, the Dodgers become a dynasty, say they win 6, 7, 8 championships in the next 10 years, could that maybe change the mind of the MLB to force or to implement some sort of salary cap?
I think so. I think you're going to have a lot of smaller market teams and ownership cry and complain to the commissioner in MLB baseball, well, we can't play with the big fish anymore. We don't make as much money as them, so we can't spend as much, so we're never going to win. So I could see them doing some sort of salary cap, whether that be a hard cap, like the NFL or NHL or something, or whether it be like the NBA with a soft cap and you pay a luxury tax if you go over it or something. I don't know. But I could absolutely see it becoming, at the very least, a talking point.
Yeah, and the struggles of small market teams aren't like a new thing.
No.
It's been going on for a while. But yeah, if the Dodgers are just outright dominant over the next decade, there's going to be a lot of talk.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely.
But yeah, let us know what you guys think in the comments, with anything else we talk about on the podcast. Or do you think the Dodgers are going to become that dynasty? Do you think, oh yeah, well, they're spending a lot of money, but it's not going to work. They're paying some of these players with all the deferred money, like 2 decades in the future, like until 2044.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even with all this spending, once these guys retire or they become, they leave in free agency when their deals are done, they're going to have a lot of deferred money.
Yeah.
And that could really hurt their ability in the future.
It could.
So
we'll see.
We just have to see. Everything's kind of in the future. But they did win the World Series last year. So even without the spending, they've shown that they can win.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to move on here to NBA, the National Basketball Association, starting with a quick standings update here. If I can spell. So with the Eastern Conference, starting off with our teams, the Celtics are 30-13. They're second overall. They're 6-4 in their last 10. And the Heat, they're still kind of hanging in there. They're 8th in the conference, 21-20 record. They are 4-6 in their last 10. And the Cleveland Cavaliers still lead the East with the 36-6 record. And they've gained a little bit of separation between them and the Celtics. They are 8-2 in their last 10. Out over in the West, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are 35-7, and they are 8-2 in their last 10. The Cavaliers are first overall in the league. And yeah, the Kings, Mavericks, Lakers, Clippers, Nuggets, Grizzlies, and Rockets hold playoff spots in that order from 8-2. And going from the Heat at number 8, the Magic, Hawks, Pacers, Bucks, Knicks, and Celtics hold those playoff spots. And then the Bulls and Pistons would be in the play-in tournament, and the Suns and Timberwolves out west would be the play-in tournament.
Yeah, the Oklahoma City Thunder and Cleveland Cavaliers had their rematch a few nights ago after the first time the two best teams in the league faced off. The Cavaliers just kind of destroyed the Thunder, and it was the same story in the rematch, just reverse. The Thunder kind of blew out the Cavs, so I don't really know what that says, but they're both very, very good basketball teams leading their conferences. The Celtics, I was getting a little nervous about a week ago. We've lost some games that we shouldn't have. And then just as of this recording last night, Monday night, went out west and absolutely demolished the Golden State Warriors. So now I'm not nervous anymore.
That was, by the way, in the Kerr era, that was the biggest loss they had ever suffered at home.
Correct. I'm still fine. I'm fine with second place in the East. Once we get to the playoffs, that's where it's really going to matter for us. As long as we stay steady where we're at, not make any stupid mistakes and everything, I'm okay being second in the East.
Yeah, and like we said last week with the Heat, really until Butler gets traded, there's a lot of stuff just kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
I mean, we're hanging around there, but we've kind of been mediocre all season. You know, even if we do make the playoffs, at this point, I don't think we're going to get anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But like we said last week, the NBA trade deadline is February 6th. So Shay, the question for you is, and we already know the Celtics roster is stacked, but do they need to go out and get anything ahead of the trade deadline? Do they need depth anywhere at any position? Do they need maybe veteran presence? You know, what are your thoughts?
Not a damn thing.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
We are locked. Our starting five and our sixth man are locked up for the foreseeable future, and we have plenty of depth. We don't need to sell. We don't need to buy. We need none of it. I'm perfectly happy with where we're at.
Yeah, and like we said, for the Heat, obviously they need to trade Jimmy Butler because that relationship is fractured. And just, you know, I don't think the playoffs should still be a goal. I think if you trade Jimmy Butler, just try to get some prospects, maybe some picks in there.
Yeah.
And just, you know, try and maybe do a little retool or, you know, see who you can land in free agency and just assess where you're at and see where you can go for next season.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Moving on to the NHL. Just not really much else to talk about basketball. We're sorry, basketball fans. But we're going to go ahead and go through the NHL standings now because it's been a couple weeks and we want to give you all some updates here. So, starting off in the Eastern Conference, the Tampa Bay Lightning are 25-17-3 overall. They are 5-4-1 in their last 10. And last night they lost against the Leafs again because for whatever reason they have the book on us.
Yep.
The Bruins now they still sit in the playoff spot, actually.
Damn it.
I thought they were out of the playoffs. The Bruins, though, are 5th in the Atlantic, but they hold the last wild card spot at 23-19-6 overall with 52 points. They are 3-5-2 in their last 10, though.
But we did beat you when you guys came up to Boston. So now
That's
the
right.
series is tied 1-1.
Every time we're at home, you guys light up Vasilevsky.
Yeah.
I think he started off saving 4 out of 9 shots.
Oh, boy.
So that wasn't good. So for the Metro Division, staying in the East, the Washington Capitals, probably the surprise team of the year, lead the division with a 31-10-5 record, 67 points. They are 8 points clear from second place. They're pretty entrenched in there. They're on a 4-game winning streak, and they're 7-0-3 in their last 10. And for the playoff spots, obviously the Capitals hold the number 1 seed. The Carolina Hurricanes follow them at second. The Devils at third. And the Blue Jackets are really close. They were in a playoff spot before the Bruins won, but I don't think anybody expected them to be near this position
No, not at all.
halfway through the season. And for the Atlantic, we have 5 teams in the playoffs. The Maple Leafs lead the division, followed by the Panthers, the Lightning, the Senators, and the Bruins. But for the East playoff race, there's a lot of teams that are challenging for that last playoff spot. The Bruins have 52 points, the Canadiens have 50 points, and the Red Wings have 46 points. It's only a 6-point margin between the division.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Metro in the East, the Rangers have 48 points. The Flyers and Penguins also have 48 points. And even the Islanders, who are last, have 45 points. So everybody's within 7 points of that last playoff spot in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
That's crazy, except obviously for Buffalo.
Oh.
Sorry, Jake. But moving on with our standings update to the Western Conference now. In the Central Division, you have the Jets leading the division with a 31-14-3 record for 65 points.
Oh, not the New York Jets. Sorry.
No. The better Jets. But they are 4-4-2 in their last 10, so they're slipping a little bit. Followed by who's in the playoff spot. The Wild holds second, the Stars are third, and the Avalanche are fourth, who hold one of the wild cards. And in the Pacific Division, you have the Vegas Golden Knights have a 29-14-4 record for 62 points overall. They're 4-5-1 in their last 10, though, and they've lost 4 in a row.
Uh-oh.
So they've started to slide a little bit, and right behind them with 61 points are the Edmonton Oilers. Followed by the Kings at third, the Flames at fourth, who hold that last wild card spot. So there you go. There's your NHL standings update and playoff picture. All set.
We're almost out of the playoffs. Come on, Bruins. You can do it.
Revenge for Montgomery. Fire Don Sweeney.
Yeah.
Hashtag Fire Don Sweeney. Leave it in the comments. Tag us. But yeah, moving on from that, we have a little bit of news to discuss for the NHL, partly because I'm a huge NHL fan. There's some controversy broiling on the west coast of Canada, Shay.
What is this? Extra.
That's right. That's right. This has actually been going on for a few months now, but it's really came to a head. The Vancouver Canucks have a rift in the locker room. Their 2 star centers, JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, don't like each other very much.
Huh.
And
That's
this has not been resolved as of now. So they are looking into trading one or both players. If they cannot find a good trade, though, they will leave it as is. But apparently Saturday, JT Miller was almost held out of the lineup because the deal was very close with the New York Rangers.
Whew.
But it fell through at the last minute. For JT Miller, he has a no movement clause, which means he basically decides where he wants to go. And he said he would only waive it for the Rangers. Elias Pettersson came out and said that he wants to stay in Vancouver. And he doesn't have a no movement clause. It doesn't kick in until next year, but he has a cap hit of $11.6 million when JT Miller only has a cap hit of about $9 million.
Yeah.
So we'll see who ends up getting traded. But with the Vancouver Canucks, they've really slid in the standings following this news. And they are out of the playoffs right now after winning the division last year.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good at all. Have especially 2 star players causing a rift in the locker room. You're just not going to win. You're just not going to win games like that.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate because both players have had 100-point seasons in the past. And they're both centers.
Yeah, exactly.
So moving on, I didn't know Connor McDavid was a goon.
What?
Goon McDavid. Him and Connor Garland got into it during the Oilers and Canucks game, in which McDavid cross-checked him, and then right after, Vancouver defenseman Tyler Myers cross-checked somebody. So they were both suspended 3 games for the cross-checking. And there's been a lot of talk now about how the NHL needs to do what the NFL does and like the NBA and start protecting their stars. I personally don't agree with that. I don't think players need to get like special treatment for anything, but I can understand the other side of the argument. You don't want the face of your league to be out for a prolonged period of time because that's your marketing and all that. So
True.
So yeah, McDavid gets a suspension, and I'm sure, he'll clean up his act after that.
He's still McDavid.
But he's still McDavid. He's not worried. He puts up points like nobody else.
Yeah.
Coming out of Pittsburgh now, going from coast to coast, starting goaltender Tristan Jarry was waived by the Penguins, and this is less than a year after he signed a 5-year, around $5 million contract for the team. So that's tough. And this is the second time this season that he's been waived.
Yeah, that's
It's not good.
Not good at all.
At all. For the Penguins, I mean, they're just kind of a disaster right now. They're so old. They got so many unmovable contracts, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But some good news for Pittsburgh. Alex Nedeljkovic, who is the starting goalie now, becomes the first goalie in NHL history to record a goal and an assist in the same game.
What? Why is that? Did he have a goalie goal?
That's right. We got a goalie goal.
Who is it against?
It was against Buffalo.
Oh. Sorry, Jake.
Jake was at that game.
Sorry, Jake.
Thanks for rubbing it in. But I mean, if my team lost and I saw a goalie goal, I honestly would not be too upset because those are very rare.
Yeah, but what if your team? You know what? I'm not going to kid you. Keep going.
All right.
I'm sorry, Jake.
But that also means Alex Nedeljkovic has goals in each of the major North American hockey leagues.
It's pretty cool.
So the ECHL, the AHL, and now the NHL. So pretty nice. You always love to see it. I think that's the second one this season too. I believe Philip Gustafson for the Wild had one.
Yeah, I think so.
They're becoming more common.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Connor Bedard, who's expected to become, the future face of the league once McDavid gets old. He now has 41 points in 47 games after they changed coaches. He's been really heating up. He's been driving more of the play. He's been, with consistent line mates, which was a big issue for him. And he scored his 100th career point.
Yay. Congratulations.
And he's only 19 years old.
How many more points before he breaks the record now?
Oh, only 2,767.
The count is on.
That's right. Even every time the goalie scores a goal too, when Nedeljkovic scored, they had like the countdown.
Yeah.
897. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Or 894.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's gonna do it. That is all we have.
That is
Shay, you got anything to add? Did I do a good job as
we both
hockey segment?
We both suck.
All right.
So no, I'm just kidding. We may or may not have a show next week. We have to wait till tomorrow to plan it out because Jairus is going to another hockey game and it just happens to fall on Tuesday. So we will, of course, keep you posted on whether or not we will have a show, and if we do, when it'll be coming out, because it's not going to be its normal day and time.
That's right. But that is going to end it for this week's episode. Get excited, people. Conference championship games for the NFL. You do not want to miss it. We're getting close to the trade deadline, so we're going to have a lot of people on the move, hopefully. So look out for that. Look out for some, draft content because the NFL draft is coming up.
Daytona 500's coming.
NASCAR. That's right. So we got a lot of content coming. But again, thank you guys so much for listening to the episode. Don't forget to like the episode, subscribe, especially on YouTube, because you get
day early access,
that's
and
right.
it's free.
Absolutely free. So I want you to do me a quick favor. Click on that big red button that says subscribe.
Yes,
I'll wait.
That one. Not the other button. That one.
No, not the dislike. No. Yeah, there you go. I'm proud of you. Thank you. But yeah, that is going to do it. Thank you guys again, and we will see you in the next one.